So we're on the top of Daf Yud Beis. And yesterday's sugya, interesting, even though we're in the middle of Chol HaMoed, but sugya came all about Ovel, because the Mishnah mentioned something about an Ovel also, and that's how the question how to read the Mishnah. And the Gemara came out that Oved is usher for an Ovel. Even if it's going to be a financial loss, it's still usher. Other people could do it for him, and Machlokes, if nobody else could do it, maybe you also could do it, then that's Machlokes B'tzina. And then other had term about Ovel, about Sarchi Rabim. There was a question about his workers, about his trucks and things like that, chamor, gamor, things like that. If someone else is going to have a hefsid, that was all about avelos. And now on the top of Daf Yud Beis, we go back to Chol HaMoed. But before we get to Chol HaMoed, it talks about Shabbos. So a little bit about Shabbos comes in over here. So the top line of Daf Yud Beis and Aleph, Amar Shmuel. So kibolas, kablonas, like today, we call a kablan. Kablan is a contractor. That means that he's paid by the job, not by the day, not by the hour, but by the job. And you have a goyish worker that is working by the job, a kablan, a goyish kablan, and is he allowed to do malacha for you on Shabbos? So the Rosh over there says here, it's talking about a house. You have a house, and he's fixing or renovating the house, and he's paid by the job. Is he allowed to do it on Shabbos? They talk about a difference between a field and a house, but let's see a few lines. So it says if it's out of the Tchum, it's mutter. Out of the Tchum Shabbos, so then no one's going to be going over there. So no one sees it. It's a question of Marasain. Minadin it's mutter because the guy is doing it for his own business. It's paid by the job. It's not, you didn't tell him to do it today. And out of the Tchum, it's okay because there's no suspicion. People don't see it. But inside the Tchum, it's also because of Marasain. It looks suspicious. It isn't only if it's within your tchum, because even if it's out of your tchum, but it's within the tchum of a Jewish city, so then Jews are going to see it. The house is already famous that it belongs to this Jew, and now people that are Jews within the area are going to say that the goyim are working on the Jew's house. That means the Jew told them to do it. So no difference if it's your tchum or somebody else's tchum. It has to be out of any tchum of a Jewish settlement. This heter is on Shabbos Yantiv. Why? Because there's the Isra of Tchumen on Shabbos Yantiv. The Jews are not allowed to go out of the Tchum. So if you have this house out of the Tchum of Jews and the Goyim are working on it, the Kabbalah, so it's okay. Nobody's going to go there. So now we get into Chol HaMoed. This is Chol HaMoed that also you don't want Goyim working on you. You can't tell Goyim to work for you. We're going to see soon that the issue of working on Chol HaMoed also means you can't tell Goyim to work for you. So if you have a house that is being renovated or built out of the Tchum, that's not a heter by Chol HaMoed because the Jews go there. The whole thing of Tchum is that on Shabbos Yantiv the Jews don't go there, so there's no Marasain. But on Chol HaMoed they do go there.
What's the problem with Marasain?
They think you told them to do it.
See it's a goy.
Yeah, but they know that's a Jewish house. They're going to think that the Jew told the guy to do it on Chol HaMoed. You're not allowed to.
They're not going to even download Kapskos that he had.
That the Kabbalah, right? It's a contractor that's doing it on his own cheshbon. The Rosh says that there's a difference between a house and a field. A house, people didn't usually do it big kabbalah, so it wasn't usually done with a contractor. So therefore, they'll think you hired him by the day, you told him to do work today, but by a field that the derech is that it usually was taken by a contractor, a sharecropper, or whatever. So then there's no Marasain, and people think that the guy is doing it on his own business, even though it's a Jewish field, but he leased it from the Jew, so then it will be mutter. But the issue with the Gemara is that you're not allowed to tell a guy to do malacha on Chol HaMoed, and Shabbos also, Shabbos Chol HaMoed, Yantif Chol HaMoed, you can't tell him to do malacha. And the issue is when it's kabbalah, it's paid by the job, not a guy is doing it on his own cheshbon as a mutter. There's a concept of Marasain that people shouldn't suspect that you told them to do it. So Shabbos Yantif, if it's out of the Tchum, it's no problem because nobody's going to see. Out of the Tchum of any Jewish settlement, so nobody's going to see that he's doing it. But Chol HaMoed, the Tchum doesn't stop anybody. Everybody's going around. Chol HaMoed trips, no problem. So then they're going to see that the Goyim will work on the Jewish house. They'll say that the Jew told them to do it, they're not allowed to. Next story, Mar Zutra, Rei de Rav Nachman, Banalei Apadna, the Kabbalah Kabbalah, Chos L'Tchum. Mar Zutra, the son of Rav Nachman, he had
both of them, Shabbos and Yantiv are both Rabbanan?
To do what?
To have somebody going.
Yes, the whole thing of the guy is only Isra Rabbanan, and now it's going to be Marasain on the Rabbanan. People will think you told him to do it. Yeah.
And Yantif would be the right.
To do it. Tell the guy, Amir the guy is the Rabbanan. Amir the guy is the Rabbanan. Even if you told the guy to do it, only be Isra Rabbanan. Is that Isra the right to tell the guy to do malacha?
Even on Shabbos?
Even on Shabbos.
It's a Rabbanan.
Mazitra, brother of Nachman, Bundle a partner, Mekabli Kabbalah, Slostat Mazitra, the son of Rav Nachman, Goyim built for him a partner. Partner is like a mansion, a house, a fancy house. Goyim that got a couple of contractors, again, a couple of others was by the job. Out of the Tchum. Sounds good. On Shabbos, he'd rather have that Goyim should be building a house out of the Tchum. He didn't tell him to, with a couple of others, contract. He didn't tell him to do it on Shabbos. So everything sounds good. But when these two Amorim came, they didn't want to go into the house. Like they made a protest. They said this house was built on Shabbos by Goyim. Now the question is why not? He says that is mutter. Some say a little different version. He himself, he didn't go into the house. He himself, even though he did it, then later on he didn't go into the house. The question is what's the problem? It's mutter. That Shmuel said that it's mutter. On Shabbos, if a guy is doing kablonos, a contracting job out of the tchum, permissible. You didn't tell him to do it on Shabbos. The Gemara answers Adam Chashuv Shani, that's only a regular person, but a person who's a chashuv person and people look up to him and they learn from him. And if he's going to have goyim doing work, they're going to learn out more leniencies. That's the problem with a chashuv person, that people don't just learn what he does; they learn more than he does. That if he does something else more than leniency, so then they learn out to be more lenient. So you have to be machmir. So Adam Chashuv has to be machmir, and therefore he had charata. Or the other people said that the Safra said that he shouldn't have done it, and people are going to learn from him. So they made this kind of protest not to go into the house. Igad Amri, I'd say a different version of how come they were machmir, or he himself had charata. Siyue Saya Betivna Badai, that he, the owner, this was Mazutra Beit of Nachman, he gave them the supplies. Means he gave them the teven, whatever cement, he gave them the supplies. So it's not mamish kablanis. Kablanis would be that you just pay him to buy the job, and he's the whole job. But if you give him the material, so then you're a little bit part of it. So then there's no heter to do it. It has to be kablanis, means that he's doing it mamish on his own. You just pay him for the price, and he does everything. That's the end of that sugya about kablanis, and it comes out. We find out something that you're not allowed to tell a guy to do malach and cholamoid either, and there's no heter. It comes out that Shabbos and Yantiv is more mutter in a certain way than cholamoid. Of course, cholamoid is more lenient than Shabbos and Yantiv. But Shabbos and Yantiv, you have a leniency that out of the tchum, no one's going to get there. But by cholamoid, you don't have that because people walk around in cholamoid. They can go out of the tchum. So therefore, there's no heter of being out of the tchum. New story.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes, please.
It's a little off the sugya, but is that you? Oh, that's me. If Marzucha wouldn't go in after he bought it, in other words, he thought maybe he did wrong after the fact. So what did he do? He sold the mansion. He never used the mansion.
I don't know. All that money. Is it possible that he sold it?
What does it mean? He didn't. He didn't go in means he doesn't use it, or he didn't go in ever.
That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like. But you're asking, would it be mutter for him to sell it? Even according to this chumrah that they made a protest, whatever, would it be mutter? And he himself had charata. Would it be mutter for him to sell it? L'chora. I would think. Is that possible? Even if it was wrong, let's say it was wrong. So what's the problem? So it's called Ma'aseh Shabbos. At most, you'd have to have a b'chnei. So even if you told the guy to do something for you. So the most you'd have to do, I'm just thinking out loud now that you mentioned the question, I didn't think about it, that I would think that Allah is, if you told the guy to do malacha for you on Shabbos, so then the most you'd have to do is wait after Shabbos how long it would have taken that he shouldn't gain from it, he shouldn't benefit from it. So make up all of the Shabbosim that they worked on. Let's say they worked for 25 Shabbosos, so wait 25 days, something like that. I wouldn't think that it would be necessary to wait longer to be called a Hana. So
I see.
So it was a chassidus.
It could be like common basis.
Yeah, the other chashuv shani probably is just a chassidus, but the second one, it sounds like it's not a chassidus already. Maybe that was also min adin. The first teretz says that it was a chassidus. It doesn't have to be machmir, he could sell it. He just made a declaration. I'm not going to go into the house. But the second teretz sounds like it was also min adin. So maybe it also wouldn't have been more chomer than just waiting in the time it would have taken for the goyim to have, if the goyim would have waited, not done it on Shabbos. Okay, I hope that's a good answer. Okay, new story. Back to Cholamoid. And here it says that Rav of Chama, he permitted the abungeri of the Reish Galusa. The Reish Galusa was the exile ark that they call. And what is the abungeri? So they say that they were like the waiters, the people who set up the tables. Rashi says also that they fixed the tables if they got broken, and he says that they permitted them to do work in Chol HaMoed, and the question is why? They worked in Chol HaMoed. Period. That's the end of the sugya. What does it say? That they didn't get paid. They didn't get paid their salary. They just got a little bit benefit. And Rashi says the benefit was that they got a free meal. They got a meal. They did the work and they got a meal. That's not the problem. So it's very ambiguous, vague, Gemara. What's the problem? What's the case over here? If they did work, were they allowed to do work? So Rashi learns that they fixed the tables. Fixing tables is that what the Muslim mutter to fix the table? So we would say that a Maisa Hadil L'Sorach HaMoed is mutter. According to the regular Kolom, before we get into the money, we would say that it depends. Are you allowed to do malacha? So we know the Kolom that Maisa Hadil L'Sorach HaMoed, if it's necessary, you need the tables for the moed, and it's not something professional, then be mutter. Or if it's a davar of it, it's going to be a loss of something, then also be mutter. So what's the problem with the money? Where's the money coming over here? If you're allowed to do it, you're allowed to do it. It says here that if they took money, they wouldn't be allowed to do it. It's only mutter because they only got a meal and not a real payment. So that's a real interesting thing. Others even learned that it wasn't even fixing tables, just was organizing tables, waiters and things like that, things that you're allowed to do in Chol Hamoed, and there's no problem. But all of a sudden, the new Gemara says that if you would have gotten money, it's asa. So this Gemara, even though it's four or five innocent lines, it comes out a huge halacha from here that even the things you're allowed to do in Chol Hamoed, you're not allowed to take money for. And that makes a big issue, that all the things that are mutter, but you're not allowed to do it for free. You can do it for yourself and you can do it for somebody else for free, but you can't take money. And that is a big question, that you go on Chol Hamoed and you want to hire a taxi. So you shouldn't be able to, because the taxi driver, if he wants to take you for free, is fine. He's doing a Ma'aseh L'Tzorach HaMoed or something which is mutter l'gamri, but it says you can't charge money. So that's a very, very interesting thing.
If he has a hefsed,
that seems to be the halacha. What's that?
maybe if he has some type of hefsed, maybe that'll take.
Yeah, he's allowed to charge for the money that he's losing, whatever gears, but he can't charge you as a taxi driver or any kind, or even a babysitter. It sounds over here like that you're not allowed to even take money for something which is permissible. No malacha being done at all, but you're not supposed to take money. So it comes out to be a halacha. But the poskim say that if you can't find somebody to do it for you for free, so then you could pay money. That's like a bit the other.
People, I mean, waiters work on Shabbos.
So the same question on that's Schar Shabbos is also that's tak also on Schar Shabbos. You're not allowed to take Schar Shabbos. The only heter is going to be havla. Havla means that they make a package deal together with something that they do in the weekday. So they make that the work that they're going to do on Friday and Shabbos costs such and such. So it's not going to be for Shabbos. And here also could be on Chol Hamoed also be mutter to do such a kind of havla that you swallow up the whole thing, a package deal. That'll be mutter here probably also. If the mutter on Shabbos is mutter over here. But there is an issue of taking money for work that's done at Chol Hamoed, and for paying money for taking money. I'm not sure how it spells out, and the Shulchan Aruch is brought down, and just the Gimel over here. Here is the Gimel, just to find out where it is. It says here that it's in Shulchan Aruch said Metaf Kuf Mem Beis, and that's what Allah says over there, that you're not supposed to take money for work done, even heter and Chol Hamoed. The Mishnah Berurah brings down a heter that if you can't get somebody to do it for free, so then you could pay money. So if that's
many times I worked on Chol Hamoed, like for Sukkos, for Simchas Beis HaShuevos, for the Iriyah, and to their credit, they were so machmir that not only would they not pay me on Chol Hamoed, often we didn't get paid till after Hanukkah. They were very machmir to make sure I didn't get paid during Chol Hamoed.
So there's no difference if it's paid before or after. There's no difference. If you're not allowed to get paid, you're not allowed to get paid. Not only
also like the band leader would have to write a Kabbalah, and he would say, we'll do it after the Moed. So we wouldn't even write the Kabbalah on the home.
It says, I'm just reading the Shulchan Aruch and Taf Kuf Mem Beis, Afilu malachas hamutaros einu mutaros lasos nelu la'atzmo or lachem b'chinam, that even what you're allowed to do is only if you're doing it for yourself or you're doing it for others for free, but you can't do it for money. And the Mishnah Berurah I think brings down someplace, I don't see it right now, that if you can't get it done for free, so then there's a heter, some folks can hold that you're allowed to, Mishnah Berurah is down right here. Mishnah Berurah says, some hold that if you can't get the work to be done for free, only people who are going to take money, so then you're allowed to pay them. Okay, so there is such a heter. Once the heter comes like that, so then the whole list falls off. That nobody's going to do work for you for free. But if there's, you could say that if it's not like somebody's making business, he's not making money, a small thing. So lachatchila, they shouldn't take money. It shouldn't be done for money. So you want to help somebody, but don't take money for it. Yes.
My father's a butcher. I remember he always worked for Hamoed.
Yeah.
Could be the davar of it.
Later on, it talks about these things, and I think the more it talks about the actual malacha, but they're talking about the store. He's not going to buy and sell. He's not going to open up a store. He's not going to make money for it. So for sure, they're allowed to make money. I don't know what to say.
It could be
No one's going to do it for free. No one's going to do it for free.
People in Borough Park and Flatbush.
Yeah, they're all open. They're all open. Plus all of the food stores. So surely it's supposed to be open. And the question, the Gemara says, are you allowed to make money? So the Gemara says, no money, but no one's going to do it then. So then it's mutter with that. Then it's mutter with money also. Okay.
Like, I think if you're tearing for butcher, and once sometimes the meat could get ruined.
No, if it's not Robert, then it's not that. That's something else. If it's
Sometimes
but here,
the
but even-
customers will go to other stores. They'll go to
even-
ShopRite if you don't have.
no, even Dover Ovid is going. Even Dover Ovid,
Oh, you
it's
wouldn't be
not
able
had
to,
to take money. So just take other Rabbi. You
Well,
have
the cost,
more
of course.
customers. Everyone's going to come. You're going to get it. So that wouldn't be a problem. But there's such a thing of not taking money, and the heter is if you can't find it, if you can't get it for free, then you're allowed to do it for money. That's what it seems to be. But it's not so simple. Shulchan doesn't even say that. Mishnah Berurah brings down the H posting. Okay, that's a few lines that Mamish is a huge chiddush in Hilchos Chol HaMoed. The Gemara continues.
Today, for some reason, all the butchers are closed.
In Eretz Yisrael, not
Because
so
they have them
bad.
might be from before. Because everyone's already packaged and no need fresh. Tana Rabbanan, the Kalman Kibolis b'moed lasos alach hamoed b'moed oser. That you are allowed to make the agreement. If you want to make with a contract, you want to make an agreement with a contractor, you're allowed to make the contract. Let's talk about. I'm not talking about writing, but you're allowed to make the agreement on the moed for after the moed. But you can't make the agreement for on the b'moed asur. Means he can't do work for you. He can't do work for you, and you can't make up. But you could make the agreement with the contractor to do work after the moed. That's not a problem. That's the actual work. But making up the agreement is not a problem. Another point. It doesn't talk about the contract. Here, that's later on. About writing, that's going to be later on. Here, it doesn't talk about it. And just a little bit, just to make a new sugi over here. It's Flolish al Davar. Culture Oisa Amel Anachri, Osa, culture and Osa and Amel Anachri Osa. That there's a. It's also to tell a guy to do malacha. Here it says it again. It says on top of the page also. Here it says whatever you're allowed to do, you're allowed to tell a guy to do. Whatever you're not allowed to do, you're not allowed to tell a guy to do. Tani idach. Mekablin kibolos b'moed lasos alach hamoed u'levad shelo yimdod v'shelo yishkov v'shelo yimna kedech shelo b'chol. Same as before. Allah we said that you're allowed to make an agreement during the moed that he's a contractor that he should do malacha after the moed. But here it says, but the material you'll be giving him to work with, so you're not allowed to measure it, weigh it, or count it for after the moed. It means that even though allowing you to make the agreement during the moed for after the moed, but don't do anything besides making the agreement. Don't measure out the material that you're giving him to do, or whatever it's going to be. If it's going to be bricks or cement or material, whatever you're giving him to work with. So don't measure that out on the moed, in order that it shouldn't be like a weekday. Show too much business if you're going to be measuring out, weighing out the material that he'll be building with or sewing, whatever it might be. So then don't do that during the moed. The farmers that they work with animals, so sometimes they want to mate them. So that's the halacha that and they do it physically. They take the male, the female, and they get them together. So it's not to do that on Chol HaMoed. It's also considered work. It's also considered working, even though it's not mamash in actual one of the 39 malachas. But that's too busy, too much tircha. You're not allowed to do that to get the animals to mate the animals on Moed. As soon as it's going to say in the bottom, in a couple of lines, it's going to say that you're allowed to put them into the same stable and they'll mate on their own, but you're not allowed to physically get them together. And also kachim, that's a different halacha, that by an animal which is a korban, you're not allowed to do malacha with them, you're not allowed to do avoda, and also to mate them is also considered doing malacha with them. Tani idach, same thing we said a second ago, that you're not allowed to do that on Chol HaMoed. A female donkey, if she does want to mate, so then if you're not going to let her, so then that's going to cause her testane, and literally means to get cold. That probably means that she's not going to be able to produce anymore. So therefore, you are allowed to davar of it. It's going to be a loss, and therefore you would be allowed to bring the zocha. Other animals that it's not such a hefsid, so then you would be allowed only to bring them into the stable that they should mate together on their own, but you're not allowed to actually help it out. The next halacha brings in also Shabbos and Yontif. It's going to be back to Chol HaMoed again, but it brings in the issue of Shabbos. Medayrin means to fertilize the field. How would they fertilize the field? Not, of course, not to throw down the fertilizer, but even to take the animals, the sheep, and they would walk that they would leave them in the field for a couple of days, and they would fertilize the field naturally. They would naturally fertilize the field. The excrement that they would leave in the field, that's the fertilizer. So you're not allowed to take the animals on Shabbos and Yontif, and even Chol HaMoed, you're not allowed to do it in order to fertilize the field. But if they came by themselves, means that probably means the animals came or the goyim came, the goyim who fertilized fields. They came with their herd of sheep and they want to fertilize the field. You don't have to stop them. You can't call them to come, but if they came on their own, you don't have to stop them. But you can't help them. You can't do any kind of help. You can let them do it on their own, but you can't help them and you can't give them over a shomer, maybe even be a goy, whatever. You can't do that in order to move the sheep around. The word lena'er would mean ni'or, which means to move around, means you don't want them to all to be in the same area. You want to fertilize your whole field. So you take the sheep and you move them around every so often that they should fertilize the rest of the field. So you're not allowed to do that. The goyim can do it on their own, but you can't help them out. Sachir Shabbos, Sachir Chodesh, Sachir Shana, Sachir Shavua, Messiah no son, Moshe Lam Shamal Lanar son. But if these are hired workers, Sachir Shabbos means that he's hired for the week. Sachir Chodesh means he's hired for the month, he's hired for the year, he's hired for the 7 years. And you gave them, they have a job that they're supposed to fertilize the field. So then, if the more they're getting paid for it. The first case was they're not getting paid for it. They're just doing it on their own. They hope maybe they'll get paid. But that says that you can't help them. But if they're getting paid, either by the week, by the month, etc., so then you're allowed to help them because they're doing it on their that's asman. They're doing it because they're getting paid. So then you could help them, and most of them you can give them over somebody. Probably it's going to be a guy. I imagine a Jewish one person wouldn't be able to do that. That's going to be fertilizing the field. But you could give them over somebody to help them to take the sheep around because they're doing it al das asman. They're doing it for their own benefit. Every Omer, B'Shabbos B'Tova, B'Yom Tov B'Mizonos, B'Moed B'Schar. When they came by themselves, before it says they came by themselves, so it says they don't have to stop them. But here it says on Shabbos, you can't do anything. You just could say, thank you, but you can't show them any kind of appreciation for what they did. B'Yom Tov, you're allowed to give them food as a token of appreciation. The more you're even allowed to pay them. It means that you can't tell them to come. And if they came by themselves, you don't have to stop them, and you even can pay them afterwards. But you can't tell them to come, and you can't help them, like it said, but you could pay them after they did it. Rav Yosef, we passed like that. So all this 4 lines was about fertilizing the field, Shabbos, Yom Tov, and Chol HaMoed, that you're not allowed to call them to do it. If they came on their own, you're allowed to let them, but you can't help them in any way. And here it says, Chol HaMoed, you're allowed to pay them afterwards. Shabbos, you could just thank him, and Yom Tov, you could give them food. But you wouldn't be allowed to call them to do it. That's considered the malacha.
Shabbos, you couldn't even give them food?
Right, you don't say thank you. You can't show more appreciation. That's too much that they're doing it for you. Okay. I mean, you could give the guy food stam, but if they're giving them as appreciation for the work that he did, we don't want any kind of encouragement to what he's doing, this fertilizing on Shabbos. So the first mission, to go back to the beginning of the parak, we went on a lot of sidetracks over here. It is, we did have halachas about doing work in Chol HaMoed on this stuff so far. But the beginning of the parak, the way it started, the Mishnah, we started yesterday, Misha at the beginning of the parak. So it spoke about Davra of it. It spoke about that you had your olives ready to be pressed, and then some onus happened, and it says that now it's a Davra of it if you don't do it. So you have Machlokas Abiyuda and Abiyusi. Abiyuda says just do the emergency measure of press the first press, and now it's not going to be a Davra of it too much. It's not going to be too much of a loss. Abiyusi says you can continue whatever you normally do. Yesterday, I wasn't sure if that meant that you're allowed to do it, even though it's not a loss at all. But I think today we're going to see in a couple of lines that the Yossi permits, because there is some loss if you don't do the regular process. So Abiyuda says the main loss is the main loss, the bulk of the loss is saved. And if it's a little bit less than usual, we're not going to permit for you to do malacha. Rabbi Yossi says you can do everything that's necessary because it's going to be a small hefsid. And once we mati you a big hefsid, we'll mati even a small hefsid already also. So that was yesterday's Mishnah, and that's all we did so far, the first Mishnah and the Gemara on it. And here it's talking about olive. It's talking about olives. Zaysim, so it's talking about olive oil, and that was the Mishnah. Machlokes Rabbi Yossi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda was machmir, just do the minimum. Rabbi Yossi was makel to do whatever is necessary. And now we have a similar Mishnah. Now we're up to the next page. And there's a similar Mishnah that's instead of oil, it's talking about wine. The same idea. Here's the Mishnah. V'chein. V'chein means just like before, we spoke about oil. Here, the same thing is going to be by wine. V'chein, mi shahaya yeinu b'soch habor. That his wine was inside the vat, means that he's pressed the grapes, and now it's ready to go on to the next stage. And it has to be packaged. It has to be bottled, whatever, put into the barrels, whatever, to age. The Iro Avel or Onis, so Shatu, Poland, Solar, Vagoma, Vagov Kedak, Divya of Yossi, of Yuda, Omer, Osolo, and Mudim, Bishvot, Chelo Yachmas. Same Machlokas as before, that Onis happened, and now if he leaves it on Chol HaMoed, it's going to get spoiled. So Yachmas is going to get fermented in a bad way, it's going to become spoiled. So it's permissible. What's permissible? So Avyuda says do the minimum. Here the Mishnah brings the opposite order. First it says Avyosi, then it says Avyuda. Avyusi says do whatever's the regular process, do also in order to save the loss. Avyuda says only do the minimum. Also, limudin, Rashi says means boards. Limudin means planks. Put planks on top of the board that it shouldn't ferment. And it's not the regular way of packaging it into the barrel and sealing it, but do the minimum. The Rabbi Yossi says you don't have to do the minimum. You could even pack bottle it, cap it, put it onto the into the barrels and the lid as you usually would. So it's not the same case as before. Before we was talking about oil, here it's talking about wine, and the Gemara got right away going to explain why it's necessary to say two cases that are more or less the same. I just the same point that the Gemara made yesterday when you talk about the Abel over here, the Abel. How do you read the Mishnah? That was Machlokas. How do you read the Mishnah? Is it saying that Abel is mutter davar Abed? Is it saying that it's aser? We pass that Abel is not allowed to do malacha, even though it's a davar Abed, as we said yesterday. So the Gemara's question is going to be why you have to have a Mishnah for the same exact thing as I said before. It's necessary. The Gemara is going to say that oil costs more than wine. It's a bigger hefsed, and therefore you might think that will be more lenient by oil than by wine, and that's why the Mishnah says both cases. And the first case of yesterday, the oil case, is a chiddush, even though it's a big loss. Rabbi Yehuda still is machmir, let's do the minimum. And the second Mishnah, today's Mishnah by wine, is going to be a chiddush the other way. Even Rabbi Yossi, who is lenient even by wine, which is not such a big loss, it's not so expensive, but also he's not there that since it's a davar Abed, you're allowed to do whatever is necessary to save any kind of a loss. It's necessary to have both Mishnahs. Diashmin and Kamaisa, but he come Rabbi Yossi Mishon the Mishcha Nafish Pseidei. Avol the Nafish Pseidei. Emamodi Rabbi Yehuda. You have to have both Mishnahs. If only we said the first Mishnah about the oil, I would say over there Rabbi Yossi's makel because it's a big hefsed. The oil is very expensive, but wine, which is not so expensive, maybe he's more to Rabbi Yehuda. Let's do the minimum in order to save the bulk of the loss, but don't do everything. But yes, that's why I have to tell you the first Mishnah. That's why he says, I'm sorry, the second Mishnah over here, to say the chiddush of Rabbi Yossi, that Yossi is makel even by wine, which is not such a big loss. The opposite is opposite. If we only would have said the case of the oil, not the case of the wine, not the case of the oil, I would have thought that the case of the oil, which is a big loss, maybe Rabbi Yehuda agrees to Rabbi Yossi that do everything, because every kind of loss of the oil is going to be significant. So tzricha, I'd have to say both mishnayos. So both by oil, which is a big loss, and wine, which is a smaller loss, Rabbi Yossi holds do whatever you have to do to save any loss, and Rabbi Yehuda says just do the minimum in order to save the main bulk of the loss.
Also by oil or only by
both of them. The first Mishnah was oil, the second Mishnah was wine. Yeah, Rabbi Yehuda is machmir in both cases, Rabbi Yossi is makel in both cases. Nu Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Abba. Man Tana Shini b'moed b'davar Abed lo Rabbi Yossi. We had this before already, a page ago, that if you find any Tana that says you need a shinoi for a davar Abed, even though it's a financial loss, you still have to do a shinoi not the regular way. It's always against Rabbi Yossi, because Rabbi Yossi holds in our Mishnah that once it's a davar Abed, you don't need a shinoi. Same way he says that do whatever you have to do. So if you find somebody that holds that you do have to do a shinoi, that's against Rabbi Yossi. The Gemara put this a page ago to say over there spoke about making noise. If you're going to fix the door, the lock, and you're banging with a hammer, Yochanan Kohen Gadol said don't. So we said that how come you're allowed to fix the door or you're not making noise with the hammer? The Gemara says that a davar Abed, Rabbi Yossi shows you don't have to do any kind of a shinoi. So we bought this a page ago, and here it is now. And this is the source. This is Rabbi Yossi, the Mishnah, the oil and the wine, that it's davar Abed. You're allowed to do everything. That's the source. Rabbi Yossi holds you don't need a shinoi, but davar Abed. Rav Yosef, Rabbi Yossi. That's how we paskin. The pasuk Rabbi Yossi that a davar Abed does not need a shinoi. The next Gemara talks about beer. We spoke about oil and wine, and now the question is about beer. You process beer, it's going to be davar Abed. Are you allowed to do everything necessary to save it? The word mesha is like laguf, to cap. You made the beer, and is it mutter to seal the lid on the barrel of beer on Chol HaMoed? What's the question? Is it considered davar Abed? Amalahu Sinai Amar Allah Rabbi Yossi. So Rav Nachman Yitzchak said Sinai says the Allah Rabbi Yossi. Who's Sinai? Har Sinai. Who's Har Sinai? Rav Yosef is Har Sinai. Here's what we had here. Amar Rav Yosef. Allah Rabbi Yossi. Rav Yosef is called Sinai. The Gemara says another place, not over here, because he was a very big bucky. He had a lot of information. There are two kinds of chachamim. There's a Sinai and there's Okaharim. The one who knows everything, the facts, he's called the Sinai. The one who's able to big London, that is able to understand the depth of it, that's called Okaharim. He's able to uproot a mountain. That's called the Lumdus. But the Rav Yosef, his specialty was knowing all the knowledge. He's called Sinai. So he said, Sinai says that it's mutter. Rav Yosef holds that a davar of it is mutter. But he said that's only by wine and by oil, by wine. Loss if you don't seal it. Abaye said from his mother. They say over there that it's not his mother because his mother died in childbirth, but it means his omena, the one who took care, the one who raised him. So she told me, it's better a six that's a beer. Well, see, the word savi they say means so. So shia means that it's sealed. Is the point that she's saying is that it's better to get less beer that's sealed. We'll see in a second, than to get more 8 that's not sealed. You can say in our language, there's a 6-pack and an 8-pack. Not a 6-pack of something that's sealed better than an 8-pack that's not sealed, because the sealed makes a big difference. The value is so much better. Rashi over here says that it means a 6 saw against 8 saw. That's a little bit difficult because usually saw is a dry measure, not a liquid measure. Rashi, there's not a Rashi, not Rashi over here, not the Pirush over here on the side, but Rashi in the Saviyah, the manuscript. So Rashi says that it means if you put more barley into the beer that you're making, it means you made a better quality beer. But if it's a better quality beer, but it's not sealed, you put an 8 saw of barley into your beer, but you didn't seal it, it's better to get a beer which is made out of 6 saw of barley, but it was sealed. Whatever the pshat is going to be, the point is that sealed beer is better than unsealed beer, and it stays fresher, or whatever the point is going to be. It lasts longer, or maybe that's the point. That it lasts longer, or maybe the point is that
unsealed beer doesn't last. It's going to lose all its flavor.
Okay. So therefore, it's a davar oven, and therefore it's also mutter. Like a Yossi, that davar oven is mutter. Davar oven means if it's going to lose, if you have a financial loss, so then it's mutter. Next Gemara, 5 lines in the bottom. They take out the last word. This last word should be erased. They take it out. The halachas of Chol Hamoed are like the halachas of Kusim. What's the halachas of Kusim? So Kusim, we know, are the nation that they converted, and the question was if their conversion was a good conversion, that they mean it l'shem shemayim or not. And the Gemara says, Rashi brings down over here, that are they careful in the mitzvahs or not? Even if you hold that they're Jewish, but the question was, do they do the mitzvahs? So it says, do we trust them that they do the mitzvahs? So some of them they do, some of them they don't. And whatever they do, whatever they took on, and you can trust them that they're going to do it. The things they didn't take on, they didn't take on. Depends whatever they took on. And there's no real rule what they took on. Whatever they happen to take on, those things you can be careful. So it says Hilchos Moed is similar. And the point's going to be that you can't learn out Hilchos Moed one from another, because the same way you can't learn out Hilchos Kusim, you can't say since they're careful in this halacha, they're going to be careful in this halacha. It depends. Whatever it is, it is. So to Moed, you can't apply one halacha to another halacha. This is the Gemara that I quoted a couple of times. Maybe I quoted it maybe a little bit broader than it says, but we'll see what it says over here. What does that mean to say that laws of Moed you can't learn from each other? The fact that the Hilchos Kusim means that they're like an akara. Akara is like a woman who's barren, and the mashal is going to be that it doesn't produce. So too, the halachas of the moed don't produce. Why is that? Usually when you have halachas that you could learn, you can make an application that this is the principle, and you can apply it to other cases that are similar also. But here, it doesn't produce. You can't apply one from the other. So in our Gemara now, it says De Amar, and if it says De Amar, so it's a continuation. Now it's going to explain an example of something that you can't learn out from each other. Others don't have the dollar. They just say like a new Gemara, and this Gemara is over already. But the Rishonim do seem to say that it's connected, so we'll learn it the way it says it. You're allowed to tar. Zoftin is like Zephys. Tar. You're allowed to tar a cup. You want that it should be, it shouldn't leak out. So you're allowed to tar a cup, but you're not allowed to tar a barrel. A barrel also you'd like to tar that it shouldn't leak out anything. But that you're not allowed to do.
Like it's too big a work?
It's too big.
Hard job.
It's hard. So Chaim Dov is saying because there's a lot of tircha. And the Rav Dimi min Adam are the opposite. Zoftin chavisa, vein zoftin kusta. That you are allowed to tar the barrel, and you're not allowed to tar the cup. Just the opposite. And why is that? That here is like a balance between two issues. One is the bigger the barrel is, so the more hefset it's going to be. If you can have a barrel that's not tarred, so there can be hefset on the whole barrel, it's not going to be a good barrel. And a cup is not just a big hefset because it's only a little bit. On the other hand, it's much more tircha to tar a big barrel than a little cup. So which one is more chashiv? So one says that the pseida is what we focus on more. The other one says the tircha is what we focus on more. It means there's a balance between the pseida and the tircha. So which one is more chashiv? So you can't learn out one from the other. So the way our Gersa says, that this is an example of something you can't learn out from each other, because there's always going to be a balance between the pseida and the techa. You can't learn out something from another halacha, because maybe here it's more techa, maybe here it's more pseida. So that would be an example.
Sorry, but why they're not asking it whether it's going to be used for the rega?
That's not the same. It is used for the regular.
So surely a barrel that you're going to be putting in sheikhah.
Maybe it is too techa. Maybe techa is still going to be also. Or you can talk about, or you can say it's talking about davar ovid, and maybe techa is also was. The Gemara said in the beginning, in the first half in the Masechta, it said that we allow davar ovid without a techa. If Avalomi make shamim, we make kilon. Over there it said even though you're allowed to do davar ovid, but only provided that it's not a big techa. So there could be.
Pushes a lot.
It could be that. Yeah. So here it says that these kind of halachas you can't learn from one from another because there are different considerations. I just would mention a possibility, that if you don't have the dalet here and it doesn't say be Omar, it just says Omar, so it's a new Gemara, and this Gemara that it says Akuros could be taken that you can't learn out halachas from each other. There's some things the halacha the Chazal will matis, some they answered, and you can't apply one to the other. Each one they looked at it for itself. And each one is a study on its own, and you can't say that these are the klolim, which we spoke about a couple of times, that Rishonim sometimes say that there are certain klolim, like 5 klolim, then they fit everything into the mold, because they do learn out one from the other. So they make the klolim. But maybe the Gemara here says that it's a kuros, and you can learn out from one from the other. And Chazal, each thing they judged on its own, is it something which should be mutar cholamoy, is something which should be aser? Does it look too much weekday? Is it necessary? So maybe it's a general halacha that says here that the hilchos moed is a kuros, just to make it possible. I heard such a thing in the name of Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. I'm not sure if anything more said about it. Hilchos moed, it's highlighted over here. Hilchos moed, hilchos kusim. I'll highlight it with this one over here. Hilchos moed, hilchos kusim, and it says that means lomar shehein akuros vein lamed zumizu.
What does it mean? I'm sorry, I heard it, but I didn't get it.
The halachas of moed, like the halachas of kusim, that it says here. If you look in Rashi, it says that the first white line, the hechad achsik achsik hechad lo achsik lo achsik. The kusim, they have some mitzvahs that they do, some that they don't. You can't apply one from the other. So to halachas moed, don't learn one from another. Each one is a barren halacha that you can't apply to other cases. The Gemara continues, bottom line. Amar Abaye, Naktina, Hilchas Moed, Ki Hilchas Shabbos. Another similarity, but not the same. No Allah altogether. The Hilchas Moed has some similarity to Hilchas Shabbos. In what way? So the Gemara says on the top line, Yesh men pater avos, Yesh men mutar lachatchila. Just like by Shabbos, not everything, even though it's not chayiv, but some things are pater, but you're not allowed to do it. And it's not chayiv v'chatas, but you're not allowed to do it, even in asim of the raisa. Some things is mutar lachatchila. So too, Hilchos Moed. Just because don't say that everything's on the same level. Some things are asa, some things are mutar. I don't know what the chiddush is. The chorah every time something is mutar, something is asa, and not only Hilchos Shabbos. And here there's no deraisa over here. No one's gonna, even if it's deraisa, it's not going to be chayiv v'chatas. So I don't really know what's being said in the first line. Rashi says that. I don't know, some things there's ein zovsin is aser, but doesn't become chayiv. Of course not chayiv. And something zovsin means that's mutar l'chatchila. This top line in the Gemara, I don't really have clarity.
Are we going back to
Any halachas of chol hamoed, yesh ben pater avos, yesh ben mutar l'chatchila. It actually gives an example about zovsin, but in general, you have to always find out chol hamoed if it's mutar or aser. I don't have any understanding of this top line because there's no chayiv over here, and surely some things are mutar, some things are aser. So I don't understand that line.
Seems to be teaching a klal. It seems to be.
But it doesn't say klal. It just says some things are mutar, some things are aser. What did it teach us?
New sugya. Naktinan. I didn't want to.
Naktinan. We have a Masorah. We hold on. Ochazim. That's how we hold on. New sugya from here till the bottom of the page is one big sugya. And it's talking about mechuber. If we make a title for the sugya, it's called mechuber. And even though we spoke about different terms we're doing work in chol hamoed, the question is how it applies to mechuber, something that's attached. So the Gemara starts on the second line. Rafuna they cut down, they reaped his harvest on chol hamoed. And it's because it's a davar of it. If he would have left it longer, it would have been spoiled. Something would have been ruined. So he reaped the harvest. The wheat. And the Pashas would say, because Davar is mutter, if it will be a financial loss, whatever reason it's going to rain, whatever the case is going to be, that it's going to be a loss, so you'd be allowed to do malach on chol hamoed. But there's a kasha that the Brisa says you're not allowed to do it on mechuber. His son asked him, the Brisa first starts that you're allowed to grind. You're allowed to grind kemach, whatever you need for the chol hamoed. The pechin is a malacha, but you're allowed to do tzorach hamoed. But it's not tzorach hamoed. You're not allowed to. Good, simple. Davar she'avad b'moed muter, v'asoseh b'moed. Davar she'ein avad b'moed aser. Again, davar avad is muter. that if something is going to be a financial loss, so it's mutter to do it on Chol Hamoed. If not, you're not allowed to do it. But then the Brisa says, here the Brisa says that you're not allowed to do malacha if in mechuber, even if it's a davar oven. Mechuber l'karka, afilu kula avodah. That's the kasha. How could you harvest your field on Chol Hamoed, even if it's davar oven? The Brisa says mechuber l'karka is awesome. The Brisa continues, if you don't have what to eat, so it's not just because davar oven is not heter for mechuber l'karka. But if you don't have what to eat and you need to eat, so then not that you're going to starve, but you're doing this for the tzarech of Yom Tov in order to eat. So then you're allowed to do all the malachas, you're allowed to reap, you're allowed to gather, you're allowed to thresh, you're allowed to winnow, you're allowed to sift, you're allowed to grind. But when you're dush, when you're being threshing, so don't use oxen to do it. Do it with a stick. Don't take the oxen. That's one way they would do to thresh. They would bring oxen with them, and they would be dragging a board of a threshing board. That you're not allowed to do. We'll get to that back. The Gemara's going to get back to that soon. But the main point, ma'amer is to gather
into the
sheaves. So our subject is this one line that it says mechuber l'karka afilu kula avodah. There's no heter of davar oven by mechuber l'karka. So you, Abba, Rav Huna, that he had Rabbi Rav Huna, Rav Huna, and his son Rabbi Rav Huna asked him, how are you allowed to do that? The davar oven is not heter for mechuber l'karka. You're not allowed to harvest the field just because it's a loss. Amalei, the father said to the son, Rav Huna said to his son Rabba, Yechidahi. Well, those feel long couple say. You're right that the Brisa says so, but that Brisa is only the opinion of an individual opinion. I'm going to pass it like that. And he's going to bring a Brisa that says that the author of this Brisa was Rabbi Yossi, and therefore it's only one opinion. We're going to pass it like that. How do you know? That's Yachid. The Tanya, Klal Rav Shimon Gamliel, Shimon Rav Yossi. Here's Rav Yossi talking. It says here, it's Rav Yossi. If it's tolush, it's not connected to the ground, so then even a part of it is avod, then it's mutter, because davar avod. Also, this is, it says it over again. It says the same thing I said before. It said that something which is mechuber to the ground is also if it's avod. But here it says Rav Yossi is the author, and since it's Rav Yossi, so we don't pass like that because it seems to be only a das yachid. So therefore, davar avod is mutter even if it's mechuber. So we're not going to pass like that. We're not going to pass like this line over here. We're going to say that it's mutter. Only a bill shows that it's asa, and we don't hold like that. The Gemara has a problem.
So Rabbi, up to now, Rabbi Yossi was always maker. He's like a negative.
I don't know. And the two Mishnayos in this parak said he was maker. That's true. The Mishnayos about davar avod is mutter that you don't have to. But here's a chomer of mechuber. By mechuber, there is a chomer that he holds that you're not allowed. There's no heter of davar avod by mechuber. It's not the same subject.
You can't do any work on fields which are still connecting,
to the ground.
Yeah, it makes sense.
What makes sense?
Because it's not anything else you can make. It's like muktzah. You're not allowed to take anything from a tree.
We're talking about Chol Hamoed. You're allowed to do malach in Chol Hamoed davar avod, and here it says you're not allowed to do this mechuber.
Because of chibur. Because
what happened, Makara?
Because I can't make use of it. I just know even a havamina that I can use.
I'm not sure what you're saying. Talking about Chol Hamoed. Chol Hamoed. He wants to.
Even Chol Hamoed. What can you do? What can you do with your trees on Chol Hamoed? Can you prune it?
I'm not sure what you're saying. Davar avod is a heter on Chol Hamoed. You're allowed to do malacha for davar avod, the financial loss. He has a financial loss, but he's not going to harvest his field, so it's going to go ruin. So it should be mutter according to the regular Chol Hamoed. He came with a new Allah, mechuber is asa. So go figure it out. Why? Why is mechuber asa?
And up to now, we've learned that even if you're allowed to do things on a tree,
davar avod. So now it says that mechuber is asa. Why? You have to say something because it looks too weekdayish. It looks like you're doing regular work, business as usual. You don't see this chumrah of a mechuber. But we don't pass like that.
The previous halachas where they did allow it, it's davar avod. They said yes.
We're saying here mechuber is asa. That's the one. There's an issue of mechuber. So if Yossi says mechuber is asa by davar avod, then the Gemara doesn't pass like it. Second wide line. We have Yossi, the other shnami b'paras. There was a problem because in this brisa we just finished saying that mechuber is asa. We said that Yossi is the author. But to go further in the brisa said that if you're doing it because you don't know what to eat, then you're allowed to do even the mechuber. Even if Yossi also holds that you're allowed to harvest, do sheaves, thresh, everything. You're allowed to do all this malacha. But it ends off but don't use cows to thresh. And the question is, why should Yossi hold that as asa? You have Yossi yodesh nami b'paras. He can even use the cows also to thresh. Because Yossi holds you don't need a shinoi. If you and just like it doesn't need a shinoi by the davar ovid, when it's mutter, he shouldn't need a shini over here either. The Gemara is comparing all these things together, that Rabbi Yossi shouldn't be machmir not to use the cows. The more thinks the reason why he's not using the cows is because of a shinoi. But he told him it's not the pshat. Amalacha, achinami, chivin the whole yom, alav b'paras daishia, idnam milav shinoyu. The Gemara seems to answer that this is not a shinoi. The point that he's not using cows is not because it's a shinoi. People in the week, they also don't use cows always. They also use a threshing rod or something like that. So it's not because of a shinoi. What is it? Doesn't say. It doesn't say what the problem is with poros. Rashi says the problem is because it's too avsha milsa. Where's the Rashi? The asa poros mishum the avsha milsa, because it's too public. It's too loud that he's doing with the cat. It looks like too much of a public issue that he's threshing. So that's a side point, nothing to do with Rabbi Yossi. And the Gemara is happy with the pshat. The author of the Brisa before is Rabbi Yossi that holds mechobel l'karkas asa davar ovid. And he also happens to hold that you shouldn't do it even when it's mutter to do it because you don't have what to eat. It's still mutter to do it, but don't do it with cows because it's too public. And we don't pass like the first Rabbi Yossi, we don't pass like that. Mechober is mutter, even davar is mutter even with mechober. As far as the second thing, we do pass like Rabbi Yossi that even though you're going to be doing threshing, even if you don't know what to eat, but don't thresh with oxen. Tana Rabbanan. Go up to what's that? The fifth wide line. Tana Rabbanan. Tochanin b'moed. L'tzorach hamoed. Shalom l'tzorach hamoed. Asim. Tim tochan v'hosi arezam muter. You're allowed to grind and chol hamoed whatever you need, but if you don't need it, you're not allowed to grind. If you ground whatever you thought you needed, but you had extra, then it's muter. It doesn't become muscle. That's because you did it on chol hamoed, because you did it better. It's much more a little bit. If you would have done it basic, then it wouldn't be muter after the chol hamoed. I don't know. But here it says that if you did it because you thought that you're allowed to, because you thought you're going to need it, so the leftover is also mutter to use after chol hamoed. That was one case, just to make a little. The first one was tochanin. Then there's going to be another case that's going to say kosis and eitzim. There's going to be a third case talking about matil and shechar. They're going to be all the same thing over and over again. It says three cases that says again the same thing over and over. That if you need it for the moed, it's mutter. If you don't need it, it's aser. If you thought you needed it and they have leftover, then it's mutter. Mutter for the leftover. The second case is kosis and eitzim. The more you're allowed to cut wood on the moed if you need it. Here, this happens to be a case of mechuber. Kosis and eitzim says it's mutter. You need it, moed, you're allowed to do it. If you don't need it, you're not allowed to. Then raise a mutter. If you have leftover, they did it better, so then it's mutter to use. And the third case, over and over again, matil and sheikh of a moed, you're allowed to make beer on moed if you're going to be using it on the moed. And if you're not going to be using it on the moed, you're not allowed to make beer. And if you have leftover, you made more than you needed, it's mutter after the moed. Matil and sheikh, you're allowed to make beer.
Oh, you're actually making it.
You're making the beer.
How is it going to get ready? Oh, I guess if you got 7 days, it could be in the beginning of the morning.
I don't know how long it takes. Anybody knows how long it takes?
I don't know.
Anybody knows how long it takes to make beer? Any beer makers? Okay. Here it says that you're allowed to make beer, but it'll be ready to drink on moed. If you don't need it, then you're not allowed to. If you thought you're going to use all of it and you made an amount that you thought that you're going to use and they have left over, again, it's mutter. So it said 3 times the same thing. Uvilvad. Uvilvad shalo yarim. This is a new halacha now that it says about harama. Are you allowed to do harama? Harama means that you really have enough, but you say, I'd like to make a different kind of a beer, whatever, more beer, and I'll use a new one. Are you allowed to do harama? That you really don't need it. You're just doing it for the purpose of making more for after the moed, but you do it in a way that it looks like you're doing for the moed. And you're going to drink it on the moed and you have leftover now from the original one that you had. And it says you're allowed to no harama. You're not allowed to do harama on chol hamoed. For a minute, the Gemara is a kasha from a brisa that says that you're allowed to do harama. Matil and sheikh of a moed, the tzorach hamoed, v'shalom tzorach hamoed aser, echad sheikh tavorim, v'echad sheikh sorim, v'yaf pi sheyesh lo yashan marim. Here it says yes marim. Here it says that you are allowed to do marim. That's going to be a contradiction between the two brises. I'm just going to erase this part already. We just have now the contradiction between marim and not. Here it says that you can't do aroma, but the other brisa says you could make beer on the moed if you need it. If you don't need it, don't. All kinds of beer, date beer, barley beer. But now it says, if even though you have old beer, that's good, you could drink it, but he could do aroma and say, I want to have new beer, and he makes new beer and he drinks it, and then he has left the old beer that he had left over for after the moed. So it says he could do aroma. That's a contradiction in the two brises. Before it said lo yam, here it says marim. The Gemara says tanoi, that it's taka machlokes. We find the machlokes about this point, are you allowed to do aroma or not? Tanoi, the Tanya ein marimin b'kachar, b'esab b'dam marimin. Machlokes tanam if you're allowed to do aroma on chol hamoed. End of the sugya. New sugya. Rav back to the thing about harvesting. It said on top of the page, Yavuna harvested because Dover Ovid, and his son had a kasha. How you allowed to do that? Rabbi Yossi said the Bryce says you're not allowed to do Dover Ovid b'mechuber, and the Gemara said that that's only Rabbi Yossi when I'm passing like him. Here, Gemara brings another story. Rav also has such a story that he cut down his field on Chol Moed. It's also a Dover Ovid. Where did it go? Rav, they cut down his field in Chol Moed. The Chor is Dover Ovid. If he wouldn't have done it, it would have been a loss. And he says this mutter. Shama Shmuel, Ikbit. Shmuel heard that Rav cut down his field in Chol Moed. He was upset. He did wrong. Name Shmuel Kichi does realize it because Shmuel holds like that. Yachad Rabbi Yossi. We said before that this is Machlokes Rabbi Yossi and the Rabbanan. Rabbi Yossi holds that it's Aser. Rabbanan holds that it's Mutter. So Shmuel's Machman means he holds like the Rabbanan, like Rabbi Yossi. That Tav is Mutter, but Aser b'Mechuber. No, he also doesn't like that. Different story. Chasta the Chiti Haba. The low ever posted. It was wheat. Whatever the case was, it wasn't barley. It was wheat. For some reason, it wouldn't have gotten ruined. It was not a double of it. So why did Rav do it? Rav my time of it. Why did Rav do it? Different story. It wasn't because double of it. It's because he didn't have what to eat. He did it because he was going to eat it. And that's mutter. It says before. Even Rabbi Yossi tells you allowed to do it. That's what it says in the Brisa before. It says the main law. Just cross out that. Then go on to the next. It says here. The main law yochal. Then it's mutter. Then you're allowed to do everything. It just says that don't use oxen to thresh, but otherwise it says you're allowed to do it. So what's the problem? Why did Shmuel have kindness on Rav? The Gemara says, Rav, my time with Abu Dhabi, he didn't have what to eat. That's why it's mutter. Shmuel didn't hear the whole story. He just thought that he did it because Davar Ovid, so he had kindness. But if he would have heard the whole story, he wouldn't have had any kindness because Taka Ein Lama Yochel is mutter. Or another reason why Shmuel was makbid, he did hear the story, but he said that Rav, somebody like Rav, he has to be makbid anyway. Even Ein Lama Yochel, it doesn't mean he doesn't have what, he's not going to starve, but it means that he'll have to get it from somebody else, or he'll eat something else. He's not going to have wheat. He won't have bread. He'll have something else. So Shmuel held that Adam Chashiv has to be machmir. The Gemara continues. This now next thing now is going to be a parentheses. It's not just as a bonus that comes in as a side point. It's not our subject, but it also has something about Adam Chashiv Shani until here. That's going to be a bonus, a side Gemara. So what does the Gemara say? Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya Nafik B'chomer to the Medusha v'Ishti Ma'id Lachem K'pei La'amar. Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, that's not Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, that's the grandson. The grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya. So he went out on Shabbos with the Chomer to the Medusha, some kind of a ring, and the person say that it's talking about that it wasn't a jewelry, it was more like a signet ring maybe, and he walked out with it. Sounds a little bit like he went out to Rishus Rabbim, maybe not, maybe only went on the chutzah. Whatever the case was, it was the Shabbos question. If he was not aware that wear this ring, and Ishti Mai Dachim Kapela Amar, he also drank water that was heated up by a goy. Kapela is a chef, but the point is that the goy heated up the water. It's a question of Bishul Lakum, Bishul Nachmi, that you're not allowed to have things that were heated, cooked by a goy. No.
I mean,
all year round.
Oh, Bishul
Nachmi. Shama Abami Ikbid, Abami heard about it, he was upset that Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya. What did he do? Amar Yosef, my time Ikbid, Yosef was wondering, why is Abami upset? Is it a problem that he was wearing this jewelry? It says in the Brisa that all of these kinds of jewelry, a bracelet of some sort, and a earring, nose ring, and rings, it's like a kli, which is mutter to carry in the chutzah, and it's not that you're allowed to wear it also. That's the reason why it's mutter, because it's usable, it's functional. So you are allowed to wear it, this jewelry in the chutzah at least. So what was the problem? And also the problem of drinking the water that was cooked by a goy, because he drank water that a goy chef heated up. That there's no issue on a goyish cooked thing if it was able to eat eaten raw. Something which you can't eat raw and a goy cooked it, then you're not allowed to eat it because it was cooked by a goy. You benefited. But if it was able to eat raw, you have a baked potato, you can't eat a raw potato. So then that's also if the goy did it. But if you took a baked apple, an apple you could eat raw, even though the goy made it baked, that's still mutter to eat. So what's the problem? Water is edible the way it is, drinkable. The more answer Adam Choshev Shani, that the reason why Rami is makbid, that even though it's mutter, these two things are mutter, but Adam Choshev has to be makbid more because people learn from him. We said already before that people learn from Adam Choshev, and therefore he has to be makbid more. And here he held that the Yehuda Nasiya should have been machmir not to wear this kind of jewelry on Shabbos, and also not to drink food eat or drink something which is cooked by a goy, even though it was edible raw.
So one time men could wear jewelry.
Yeah. This only has to do with culture. In a place where the men don't wear jewelry, so then maybe it's considered tachshit enoshim, it's considered the labush isha. But inherently, it's mutter to wear men's jewelry. Omar Rav Hananel Omar Rav. It says here that you're allowed to cut down the palm branches, even palm tree, on the cholamoid, even though you only need the sawdust. Means if you need it, you're allowed to cut down. So here we're getting into mechuber again, and it says that you're allowed to cut down mechuber if you need it. The sawdust means even the sawdust, means even if you just need a little part of it, also it's the small twigs, that's also mutter. Surely if you need the wood itself, you're allowed to cut it down, even though it's cholamoid. Might Allah Abaye cursed on somebody that does that. He didn't. Abaye said didn't like this happen. Rashi have a Abba b'Shalanya. Rashi had a Abba. Abba they say means a yar, a forest. He had a forest of trees in a place called Shalanya. Also, when he went down to cut it down. He needed for some reason he needed wood and he wanted to cut it down. It doesn't seem like it's davar of it. It sounds like it was more like a tzorach hamoed. He needed it. Amalei Rav Shila Mishalanya Ravashi, but in that city where he had it over there in Shalanya, there was a Rav Shila over there. And Ravashi came there to cut down his forest. He said, "My daitach to come Rav Hanan Lam Rav why are you doing this? Because you hold like Rav that says you're allowed to. Allah to Allah Abaye curse somebody that does it. The Abaye doesn't like to do this. Abaye said he shouldn't do it. Amalei Lo Shmieli. I didn't hear. I don't hear. Klama Lo Shmieli. I don't agree to it. Means he doesn't agree to Abaye. Rav says his mother. Abaye was upset. Abaye cursed somebody that did it. But I'm not choshish for Abaye's then. But ishtamit narga boy lemifseke l'shake. While he was cutting down the wood, so the axe slipped and it almost cut off his foot. Shavke Vadarasa, so he left it alone. Like he said, because it's the curse of Abaye. It's the curse of Abaye. Abaye's curse is taking effect. So he stayed clear of it. So are you allowed to cut down trees? Rav said it's mutter. Abaye didn't like it, he gave a curse, and maybe stay away. So we had the Gemara before that spoke about Davar Ovid, and we said it's Machlokes, and over there it seems that it's mutter. Davar Ovid. Here it says Sorach Hamoed, it sounds like, and maybe Abaye didn't like it, maybe Abaye didn't like it before either. If he's doing it for food, is maybe one thing, but here he's cutting down trees. Maybe it looks like too much work. That's also in Cholamoid. Maybe Abaye would also agree that chita you're allowed to do. Maybe you can't compare one to the other. Akura saying I don't know, but the Gemara before spoke about wheat, or not wheat. Wheat the Gemara says not a davar of it, but barley. Let's say whatever, some kind of a harvest you're allowed to do with a davar of it. And Rabbi Yossi also says we hold that it's mutter. Here the Gemara spoke about a tzorach hamoed that he needs for something, and Abaye cursed somebody that cut down for tzorach hamoed. The Gemara continues, Rav Yehuda Shol Lameka Kitna Lamiktal Keshusa Lameka Shumshami. All these things are also uprooting things that are connected to the ground. He says that's mutter to uproot kisna. Kisna is flax. Flax. And Miktal Keshusa. Keshusa is they say hops that you make beer from. So also you can uproot it, and also to take out sesame. Lameka Shumshami, sesame. And the point is going to be again l'chora that you're using on a chol moed, and even though you're uprooting it from the mechuber, it's still mutter. Amalei Abaye Rav Yosef Bishlam Lekitna Chazil Lachafifa Keshusa Chazil Leshikva Eloshim Shemi Lemay Chazil. So Abaye didn't understand what the use of these things is going to be. Of this thing is going to be for on the moed. He says kisna, the flax. I understand Chazil Lachafifa. Rashi says it's usable to cover up food. Whatever the case was with the flax. Maybe the whole plant would be used. It keeps things insulated, so you'd be mutter to do it because it's usable on the chol moed. And keshusa also you can make. That's the hops you can make beer out of. Also it's usable on the chol moed. And Abaye seems to have no problem over here, even though Abaye is before cursed. If you cut down trees, but cutting down these things as a food, that's okay, or necessary for food. But here, shumsami l'may chazi. What could you use sesame for? So it seems that in the case of these, the Gemara didn't think that you can use sesame for something which is going to be right chol moed. There may be some process that takes time, and it wasn't something that can be used on chol moed. But the Gemara says no, chazi l'nazye de isbu, that it is usable for the seeds, the sesame seeds. And Rashi seems to say that this you could use right away. Rashi says, garin isbu, and they make out of it sesame oil. So the Gemara thought that it was nothing with the seeds that you could do that's ready for chol moed. So it's not a tzarach moed. But he says no, there is a tzarach moed for all these things. In the last story, Rabbi Yani the mother Zimle behold the moed l'katve. Rabbi Yani had an orchard that it came time to pick it on chol moed. And if he wouldn't have, it would have been a lost, davar aved, so he picked it. And that's what the Gemara said before, davar aved is mot even bo mechuber, not like Rav Yossi, so he did so. L'shana, shehuye kuli alma lefardisayu l'chol moed, and the next year, people learned from him that he picked his origin of Chol Moed. So everybody the next year, they could have done it before Chol Moed, but they left it. And they said, if Yanni does a Chol Moed, we can also do Chol Moed. And he felt very bad that he caused a michshol. He didn't do anything wrong, but people learned from him, like we say, Adam Chashuv Shani, that a person has to watch how people are looking at him. And therefore, the next year, after Rabbi Yanai leParadisha Yahu Shata. So that year, Rabbi Yanai was mafkir as paradise. So probably doesn't mean that he's mafkir the trees, but he's mafkir the produce. And he says he didn't want to benefit from it. If people learned from him a michshol because he picked it, so he made a protest and a declaration. People should know Rabbi didn't say that. So therefore, he was mafkir his fruit. We bring down here a Yerushalmi. Reinachanan brings down over here an interesting thing to learn from. Yerushalmi, one line from the bottom. Yerushalmi, Yalfin. I don't mean the whole line, just the bottom over here. Okay, I couldn't do the whole, that's the first couple of words. Yalpin mikal kalta, below yalpin mitaknaya. People learn now from the bad things. They don't learn out from the good things. Means they didn't learn everything else Rabbi did. Rabbi did a lot of good things that they didn't learn from. But the one thing that he did, that he took, he harvested his orchard on Holomoy. They said, "Oh, Rabbi, I'm going to be like Rabbi." So that's something to learn from. That when you're learning from a person, learn from the good things. Don't learn out only the coolest. Learn out the other things that he does also.
Everybody speaks about Moshe with his color stam.
Which thing?
The color stam.
That's what they call like a Moshe. But he has other things also.
Of course.
Okay, that's your everybody. We'll be back with Navi in a number of minutes.
No. It said only.
Thank you, Rebbe. Have a good day,
Yeah.
everyone.
Thanks a lot. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
It said, of course,